Welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Naurin. In today's bulletin, we will get you detailed news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Biden zeroes in on economic message as campaign winds down. Rural areas to get 759 million in grants for high-speed internet. Amid fierce battles, Russia warns it could hit US satellites. US imposes more Iranian sanctions over Mahsa Amini's death. Trump to rally in Iowa ahead of November 8 as he teases 2024. Meta fined 24.7 million for campaign finance disclosure violations. Man convicted of killing 6 with SUV in Christmas parade. Three men convicted of supporting plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer. Musk doesn't seek a free-for-all hellscape for Twitter. Ye kicked out of Skechers headquarters in California. Islamic State claims Iran shrine attack that killed 50. European Central Bank makes another large interest rate hike. Russia, NATO hold nuclear drills as Ukraine villages founded. African health official says Ebola in Uganda is under control. Prince Harry's memoir titled Spare to come out January 10. Qatar drops coronavirus restrictions just before World Cup. And Jokic Nuggets keep Lakers winless with 110-99 victory. Now news in detail. President Joe Biden is zeroing in on a largely economic-focused message amid raging inflation and recession risks Thursday as he takes his closing argument for the November midterm elections to a top congressional battleground and tries to reassure restive voters around the country. Biden's travels to Syracuse, New York on Thursday and to Philadelphia on Friday are part of a strategic two-step crafted for a persistently unpopular president, promote his administration's accomplishments at official White House events, while saving the overt campaigning for states where his political power can directly bolster Democratic candidates. The White House of late has paid outsized attention to Pennsylvania, where Democrats are aggressively contesting a Republican-held Senate seat to help offset potential losses in other marquee Senate races. Publicly, the White House and senior Democratic leaders express optimism that they will defy traditional midterm headwinds and retain control of Congress. But in private, there is angst that the House will be lost to Republicans and that control of the Senate is a coin flip. Biden got a boost on Thursday on the news that the US economy grew at a better than expected 2.6% annual rate from July through September, overcoming inflation and interest rates and snapping to a straight quarters of economic contraction. The US Department of Agriculture is making available $759 million in grants and loans to enable rural communities to access high-speed internet, part of the broader 65 billion push for high-speed connectivity from last year's infrastructure law. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and White House Senior Advisor Mitch Landrieu unveiled the grants in North Carolina on Thursday. There are 49 recipients in 24 states. One is North Carolina's Access on Networks, which will receive $17.5 million to provide broadband service to 100 businesses, 76 firms, and 22 educational facilities in the state's Halifax and Warren counties. Both counties are rural and have predominantly black populations. The announcement and visit to North Carolina, a state with an open U.S. Senate seat, come as President Joe Biden and other top Democratic officials are trying to sell their achievements to voters before the November 8 midterm elections. Landrieu, the infrastructure coordinator and former New Orleans mayor, told reporters on a Wednesday call that the Biden administration has already released $180 billion for various infrastructure projects. The administration is specifically targeting support for small towns and farm communities, places that generally favor Republicans over Democrats. A senior Russian foreign ministry official said that commercial satellites from the United States and its allies could become legitimate targets for Russia if they were involved in the war in Ukraine. Russia, which in 1957 launched Sputnik 1, the first man-made satellite, into space and in 1961 put the first man in outer space, has a significant offensive space capability, as do the United States and China. In 2021, Russia launched an anti-satellite missile to destroy one of its own satellites. Konstantin Vorontsov, deputy director of the Russian Foreign Ministry's Department for Non-Proliferation and Arms Control, told the United Nations that the United States and its allies were trying to use space to enforce Western dominance. Vorontsov, reading from notes, said the use of Western satellites to aid the Ukrainian war effort was an extremely dangerous trend. Quasi-civilian infrastructure may be a legitimate target for a retaliatory strike, Vorontsov told the United Nations First Committee, adding that the West's use of such satellites to support Ukraine was provocative. The United States on Wednesday imposed new sanctions on members of Iran's intelligence agency, leaders of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, prison wardens, and others, acting 40 days since 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died while being held by the morality police. The US government's sanctions arm designated 10 members of Iran's leadership with financial blocks and penalties, continuing a string of actions imposed against Tehran for its repression of protesters and disrupting internet access. Targeted in the latest sanctions were the commander of the Guard's intelligence organization, its deputy commander, wardens from a number of prisons, and an Iranian company that conducts social media filtering. Separate sanctions from the State Department were levied against individuals and companies that engage in and train people in hacking and others. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the US will continue to impose costs on individuals and entities in Iran who engage in the brutal repression of the Iranian people. Former President Donald Trump is scheduled to return to Iowa ahead of the November 8 midterms to headline a rally for Republican Governor Kim Reynolds and Senator Chuck Grassley, Trump's organization announced Wednesday. The event, set for November 3 in Sioux City, the hub of Iowa's conservative Northwest, comes as Trump has continued to tease interest in a White House comeback campaign, as he has campaigned around the country for Republican candidates. Returning to Iowa, where the 2024 Republican presidential caucuses are scheduled to launch the GOP nominating sequence, would likely further stoke speculation of Trump's future. In order to make our country successful, safe, and glorious again, I will probably have to do it again, Trump said in Robstown, Texas on October 22. The Iowa event is part of Trump's rally tour in the home stretch of the 2022 campaign. It is also expected to include stops in Pennsylvania and Ohio. A Washington state judge on Wednesday fined Facebook parent company Meta nearly $25 million for repeatedly and intentionally violating campaign finance disclosure law in what is believed to be the largest campaign finance penalty in US history. The penalty issued by King County Superior Court Judge Douglas North was the maximum allowed for more than 800 violations of Washington's Fair Campaign Practices Act, passed by voters in 1972 and later strengthened by the legislature. Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson argued that the maximum was appropriate considering his office previously sued Facebook in 2018 for violating the same law. Meta, based in Menlo Park, California, did not immediately respond to an email seeking comment. A Wisconsin man was convicted Wednesday of killing 6 people and injuring dozens of others when he drove his SUV through a Christmas parade, wrapping up a trial in which he defended himself with bizarre legal theories and erratic outbursts. It took the jury a little over 3 hours to find Darrell Brooks guilty of all 76 charges, including 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. He faces a mandatory life sentence on each homicide count. Brooks, dressed in a suit and tie, silently rested his head on folded hands as the verdicts were read. His subdued demeanor was a stark departure from previous days of the trial, when his sometimes outrageous behavior drew rebukes from the judge. Judge Jennifer Dorough scheduled a hearing Monday to set a date for sentencing, when victims and their families will be able to make statements. 3 men accused of supporting terrorism in the plot to kidnap Michigan's governor were convicted of all charges Wednesday in a trial that focused on parliamentary drills and fierce contempt for government ahead of the 2020 election. Joe Morrison, his father-in-law Pete Musico, and Paul Beller were found guilty of supplying material support for a terrorist act as members of a group known as the Wolverine Watchmen. They held gun training in rural Jackson County with the leader of the kidnapping scheme, Adam Fox, who was disgusted with Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer and other officials and said he wanted to snatch her. The trial in a state court was an offshoot of the main case in federal court, which produced mixed results. Fox and an ally were convicted of conspiracy. 2 more men pleaded guilty, but 2 others were acquitted. Elon Musk, the billionaire poised to acquire Twitter later this week, strolled into the company's headquarters Wednesday carrying a porcelain sink and tweeting, "Entering Twitter headquarters." Let that sink in. Musk's $44 billion deal to take Twitter private faces a Friday deadline, although the video he posted offered no evidence that the acquisition is complete. Twitter and Musk representatives had no comment on that question, although Twitter did confirm that Musk's video tweet was real. Musk also changed his Twitter profile to refer to himself as Chief Tweet at his location to Twitter's San Francisco headquarters. The splashy video, a vintage Musk production, also pulled the spotlight back to the world's richest man and his off-again pursuit of the social platform. The Friday deadline to consummate the deal was ordered by the Delaware Chancery Court in early October. It is the latest step in an epic battle during which Musk signed a deal to acquire Twitter, then tried to back out of it, leading Twitter to sue the Tesla CEO to force him to conclude the deal. If the 2 sides don't meet the Friday deadline, the next step could be a November trial. The rapper, formerly known as Kanye West, was escorted out of the California-based headquarters of athletic shoemaker Skechers after he showed up unannounced Wednesday, a day after Adidas ended its partnership with the artist following his anti-Semitic remarks. The Grammy winner, who legally changed his name to Ye, arrived unannounced and without invitation at Skechers corporate headquarters in Manhattan Beach, southwest of Los Angeles, the company said. Considering Ye was engaged in unauthorized filming, two Skechers executives escorted him and his party from the building after a brief conversation, according to a company statement. Skechers is not considering and has no intention of working with West, the company said. We condemn his recent divisive remarks and do not tolerate anti-Semitism or any other form of hate speech. The rapper's Instagram account, which had been suspended over anti-Semitic comments, resumed posting Tuesday night. A new message showing a screen grab of a text message that appeared to be from a contact at a high-profile law firm spelled out when Ye could resume making apparel and new shoe designs. Details of the message could not be verified. Email messages sent to representatives for Ye weren't immediately returned. Now it's time for global updates. The militant group Islamic State said it carried out an attack on a Shiite Muslim shrine in Iran on Wednesday, which killed 15 people, escalating tensions in a country reeling from a wave of protests and prompting warnings of a response from Tehran. Iranian officials said they had arrested a gunman who carried out the attack at the Shah Cheragh shrine in the city of Shiraz. State media blamed Takfiri terrorists, a label Tehran uses for hardline Sunni Muslim militants like Islamic State. The group has claimed previous attacks in Iran, including deadly twin bombings in 2017, which targeted Iran's parliament and the tomb of the Islamic Republic's Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Wednesday's killing of Shiite pilgrims came on the same day that Iranian security forces clashed with increasingly strident protesters, marking the 40-day anniversary since the death in police custody of Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman. Interior Minister Ahmed Vahidi blamed the protests sweeping Iran for paving the ground for the Shiraz attack, and President Ibrahim Raisi said Iran would respond, according to state media. The European Central Bank piled on another outsized interest rate hike aimed at squelching out of control inflation, increasing rates Thursday at the fastest pace in the euro currency's history and raising questions about how far the bank intends to go with the threat of recession looming over the economy. The 25-member Governing Council raised its interest rate benchmarks by 0.75 of a percentage point at a meeting in Frankfurt, matching its record increase from last month and joining the US Federal Reserve in making a series of rapid hikes to tackle soaring consumer prices. ECB President Christine Lagarde acknowledged the risk is growing that the 19-country Eurozone economy may plunge into recession, but says inflation remains far too high and will stay high for an extended period. So the bank expects to keep hiking. We are not done yet. There is more ground to cover, she told reporters. Despite expectations, the economy will weaken the rest of this year and beginning of next. NATO and Russia's military alike staged planned annual nuclear exercises Wednesday as the Russian president repeated the unfounded claim that Ukraine plans to set off a radioactive dirty bomb. On the battlefront, Russian forces pounded more than 40 Ukrainian villages over the past day. Russian President Vladimir Putin remotely monitored the drills of his strategic nuclear forces, which involved multiple practice launches of ballistic and cruise missiles in a show of force. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu reported to Putin that the exercise simulated a massive nuclear strike, retaliating for a nuclear attack on Russia. The Biden administration said Russia provided advance notice of the annual drills. NATO is carrying out its own long-planned annual nuclear exercises in northwestern Europe without providing any evidence. In remarks carried by Russian TV, Putin said Ukraine plans to use a so-called dirty bomb as a provocation and contended the United States was using Ukraine as a battering ram against Russia and its regional allies. turning the country into a testing ground for military biological experiments. It was the first time Putin himself made the unsubstantiated dirty bomb allegation, which his officials have been repeating since last week. Uganda's Ebola outbreak is under control, a top public health official in Africa said Thursday, noting that local health authorities are doing well to trace most contacts. The situation is not getting out of control, said Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, acting director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We have good visibility of all the contacts. About 98% of 2,694 documented contacts. People exposed to Ebola by a confirmed patient are being monitored. Ogwell said, adding that it gives comfort that we know the evolution of this particular outbreak. Tracing contacts is key to stemming the spread of contagious diseases like Ebola. Uganda declared an outbreak of the Sudan strain of Ebola on September 20. The epicenter is a rural community in central Uganda about 150 kilometers from the capital, Kampala. Prince Harry's memoir, an object of obsessive anticipation worldwide since first announced last year, is coming out January 10. The book will be called Spare and is being built by Penguin Random House as an account told with raw, unflinching honesty and filled with insight, revelation, self-examination and hard-earned wisdom about the eternal power of love over grief. In a statement released Thursday, Penguin Random House summoned memories of the stunning death in 1997 of Prince Harry's mother, Diana, and of Harry and his brother, William, walking behind their mother's coffin as the world watched in sorrow and horror. As Diana, Princess of Wales, was laid to rest, billions wondered what the princess must be thinking and feeling, and how their lives would play out from that point on. The statement reads in part, "For Harry, this is his story at last." The memoir's title is an apparent reference to Prince Harry's being a royal spare, not the first in line to succession. William, Prince of Wales, is next in line. Now a look of today's sports stories. Qatar will drop most of its coronavirus restrictions beginning November 1st, just before it hosts the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Qatar's health ministry made the announcement Wednesday. In a statement, it said that PCR or rapid antigen test results would not be required for those flying into the country. It also dropped a requirement to register for the country's Ehtiraz contract tracing app. However, it's mandatory to use the app to enter healthcare facilities in Qatar. The World Cup begins November 20, when Qatar will face Ecuador. Qatar expects 1.2 million visitors during the tournament. A LeBron James-led team doesn't begin 0-4 often. Not since his rookie season has one of his teams stumbled out of the starting gate quite like this. It's a new system, it's a new group of guys together, James explained. We are still trying to get familiar with one another. Nikola Jokic had 31 points and 13 rebounds. Jamal Murray hit a big three-pointer and the Denver Nuggets kept the Los Angeles Lakers winless with a 110-99 victory Wednesday night. The Lakers remain in the company of Orlando and Sacramento as the only teams yet to win this season. New Lakers coach Darvin Ham said, "It's plenty of time for us to right the ship and it starts now." Let's have a look on today's weather chart. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia available with Sky Network, Worldwide Jabu TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jabu BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.